So what would happen to the housing market if Donald J. Trump were to get reelected into the presidency of the United States? Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Daniel, one half of the Kwok Brothers, and in this video, we're going to be talking about what would happen to the housing market if Donald Trump were to get reelected into the presidency. Now, guys, before we go ahead and begin with this video, of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also like this video. We're trying to put out as many content as possible so you guys can stay educated, which will ultimately mean better decisions, which ultimately mean better financial situation for you and your family overall. So guys, on Monday, I released a video on what would happen to the housing market if Joe Biden were to get elected. And well, I thought it'd be a good idea if I did the same thing for the orange man in the office right now. Now, guys, again, I'm going to preface this with saying that I still believe there's going to be a housing market crash happening in the year 2021. I still think there's going to be a shortage of inventory. I still think that banks are going to have some hard times with short sales and they will skyrocket, and REOs will become a problem, and banks will look to have initiatives in which they're very cash heavy and cash short term. Now, guys, having said that, I will also say, like I said on Monday, that at the end of the day, the president does not, I repeat, does not have as much power and influence over the economy as we think we do. You know, a lot of times presidents get a lot of credit or they get a lot of blame for what's happening in the market. And the reality is the market happens in cycles, regardless of what the president does. And it's very rare, right? And oftentimes that they will make a huge, and I mean huge, economic impact based on the policies that they pass. Now, having said that, there will be some things that will possibly change or continue to get better, or perhaps even worse if Donald Trump were to get reelected. Now, a big tangible, I believe, what's going to happen with the housing market the next 3 to 6 months, the next year, or perhaps even the next 4 years, considering this video, I believe it's going to depend a lot on what happens with landlord and tenant relationships on January 1st. Now, obviously, we all know that the eviction moratorium is going to wear off on December 31st of this year, which is great. It's going to end a lot of things, hopefully, in the year 2020. But the question remains, right? What's going to happen with evictions? What's going to happen with mortgage forbearance? What's going to happen, with landlord-tenant relationships, with tenant displacement, by the way, which is also going to be huge? And what's going to happen with overall inventory in the housing market with all these things? I made a video about 2-3 weeks ago saying that the economy and overall the housing market is like a domino. Once you see one thing fall, eventually it's going to trigger and correlate into a lot of different sectors and industries at the same time, right? So it is going to depend a lot on what happens and what the Trump administration decides to do if we were to get reelected on January 1st, 2020. Now, guys, it's kind of like how I shared two things with Biden that's most likely going to happen if Biden were to get elected. I'm going to share two things that's most likely going to happen, 99% sure, if the Trump administration were to stay in the Oval Office. And that first one being the continued push of the privatization of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Now, guys, this is huge. This is significant. If Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were to get private, and keep in mind, guys, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are responsible for half of our $10 trillion mortgage industry market share, right? They're responsible for half, right? Imagine they're like the Apple of the smartphone industry, right? The smartphone market, right? They're like the Apple of that for the mortgage market, right? Now, what would happen if Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were to get privatized? Because we now know, right? We now know how big of a market share they do hold, and we recognize the validity and the size of this matter, right? So what would happen? Well, there's actually a 200-page, right? Almost 200 pages, 191, but there's a 200-page report released by hutuser.gov that you could literally Google right now. Well, to save you guys 3 hours worth of time, let me sum it up for you guys in 30 seconds. So pretty much what privatization would mean for these two companies is it would ultimately, in terms of relating it to the housing market, it would ultimately make it a little harder for people to get mortgages. They would actually increase the standards and requirements that an individual would need to have to be able to be underwritten properly and positively for a 30-year mortgage. And well, having said that, there's a lot of speculation saying that this might be the death of our traditional 30-year mortgage. Now, guys, a lot of people will respond to that information differently. People are saying, well, is privatization good or is that bad? Well, guys, it completely depends. That's like asking, well, is green a good color? Well, in some cases, yes, and in some cases, no, right? If it's paired with red, it reminds us of Christmas time, waking up to presents and decorations. For me, I always like to work during Christmas because I absolutely love what I do. So for me, that's the ultimate gift. But if green is then paired with white or if it's paired with brown, well, it doesn't really look good, right? Nobody ever wears an outfit where they have a green shirt and they have, I don't know, blue pants. I'm not a good fashionista, right? My wife picks out my outfit. I could care less. I don't really give it a second of thought. However, all that to say that it really just does depend, right? Because, well, if it is harder for people to get mortgages, well, right now, based on what's happening to the market, I would actually argue is what the housing market needs right now. Because, well, what's happening to the housing market? Well, prices are skyrocketing. They're getting out of control. We have a complete seller's market, and well, making it harder for individuals to get mortgages may actually balance out the housing market and balance out the prices that have for the last 8 months or 9 months or even the last 3 years, one could argue, have been going up, 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 and up, and has not been doing anything but go up. And a lot of people have been scared and have been speculating that we are in a housing bubble because of it. So having said that, one could see from that light and that perspective that move doesn't look too bad whatsoever. Now, it could also relieve and it could also stabilize the banking industry in terms of the amount of short sales that could happen. Now, guys, I'm not saying that the crash is not going to happen. That is still going to happen. But if that privatization could happen sooner rather than later, we could see a bit of a mellowing out in the year 2021, depending on how fast this thing could get done. Now, having said that, the most important thing that we do have to consider is how regulated is the new privatization going to be? How regulated is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac going to be? Because, well, we can't forget what happened, what made them go non-private, which was a reaction to what happened in 2008. Because, well, what happened in the lead up? Well, it was a lack of accountability and lack of regulation when it came to the credit rating agencies and when it came to the mortgage-backed securities market. But of course, on the other hand of the spectrum, speaking of 2008, we can't also help but notice that high prices and people being able to get mortgages whenever they want, whoever they wanted, right? If you had a pulse, you got a mortgage. That's what ultimately also led to the 2008 crash as well. Because, well, we saw people getting 3 mortgages, 4 mortgages. We saw people getting ninja loans, which is no income, no job, and no assets. No one was verifying anything. So it was extremely easy for people to get mortgages. So in many ways, privatization could be good because, well, it could put a cap and stabilize people just getting mortgages whenever they want, wherever they want. But of course, like I said, on the other hand of the spectrum, to sum it up, it has to be regulated to some degree to make sure it doesn't get out of hand with the securities market. So that's number 1. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2, I'm going to touch on very similar things that I did with Monday's video, which is the tax policies, comparing Biden's tax policy to Trump's policy. Now, I will say there are a couple good moves that Donald Trump has made the last 4 years, right? A couple things. One, he created opportunity zones, which really incentivized development and improvements to distressed areas, right? He cut down capital gains taxes for individuals, investors, developers to want to go into these areas who are struggling, south side of Chicago being one of them, right? That's local to me. It really did incentivize a lot of investors, a lot who are my friends who do deals locally, to go in and start doing some fix and flips, to buy raw land and develop some new things. And well, we saw some good, decent improvement because of this incentive that the Trump administration did pass. He lowered the mortgage interest deduction and he also capped the property tax deductions at $10,000. Now for me, this is rather a bit comical, right? It's humorous. I'm chuckling a little bit, if you will, because, well, both these things actually end up hurting the wealthy more than anyone. And it actually does not affect the middle class or the lower middle class or the poor whatsoever at all. If anything, it helps them because it taxes the wealthy a lot more. Now, it scratches my head, and the reason why I'm chuckling is because, well, Trump kind of has this demeanor and has this reputation that he's a guy who only helps the rich people. He only helps the wealthy. Well, when we see the biggest tax policy change that he's made during the 4 years of his presidency actually hurts the wealthy more. Now, guys, it's not all the wealthy. It's actually just the wealthy that live in 3 states, New York, California, and my home state of Illinois, right? Now, the reason why it did hurt these individuals is because, well, the wealthy individuals who live in these states like California, Illinois, and New York, well, they tend to get taxed significantly more when it comes to their property and their property tax. And it put these states in a situation where it pressured them. It pressured them to either A, lower your taxes to your job creators and your business owners and the people who are actually pumping money into the system, versus either, hey, you lower their taxes or they move out, which is pretty much what we've seen the last 2-3 years, right? If you look at the state of California, for example, we saw notable YouTubers, I'm not going to name names, but notable YouTubers moved to places like Texas, moved to places like Las Vegas, for example, right? We also saw a lot of individuals, people like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, move out of California and move to states like Texas, where they're pretty much buying their multi-million-dollar mansions for free because that's the money that they're saving on taxes. Now, how do we relay this to the housing market? How does this relate to Trump affecting the housing market and how it's going to relate and how it's going to affect the future? Well, let me tell you guys. Well, I don't think it's a secret that Trump has passed taxes that have helped small businesses, i.e. myself, a lot of my friends. I employ 15 to 20 people, right, between all our virtual assistants, the people we have on staff in our headquarters, and people who work for us kind of around the world, right? It's no secret that I do provide a lot of opportunities, myself and Sam, to a lot of individuals. And well, the policies that Trump has passed has significantly helped me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna call a spade, right? I'm not for one or the other. I'm just saying that the sky is blue and the grass is green and dirt is brown. Now, how does this affect real estate investors? Because, well, real estate investors do get affected significantly whether or not Biden or Trump does get elected into office. And kind of how I explained on Monday, kind of how if taxes were to increase for us as small business owners and real estate investors, that would affect our cash flow, our returns that we give to our investors. That would affect the values of our commercial real estate holdings, such as multifamily, storage units, retail, hotels, even single family home portfolios, you name it. It would affect the valuation of that. And well, it may put a lot of real estate investors in a very unique situation because, well, it's going to affect what's known as their loan to value ratio. Now, if Trump were to get elected and he were to, keep taxes the same or, in some case, lower the taxes, it would actually have the opposite effect, where it would actually increase our net operating income, therefore increasing the value of our properties, giving more returns to our investors, allowing us to have more money in our pocket through cash flow, and it would overall do a lot of great things for the real estate investing market. Now, I do think that is going to be useful because why? Well, think about the market we are in right now. We're in a time where there's a lot of volatility when it comes to vacancy, when it comes to our tenants, when it comes to valuation of certain pieces of real estate, when it comes to banking relationships that these banks have with us, the investors. There's a lot of volatility and uncertainty. And well, having a little bit more net operating income to showcase income could help a lot of investors who are in distress not lose as much money as they were going to lose in this 2021 housing market crash. Now, guys, I want to hear your thoughts, right? Because I really only kind of scraped the surface when it comes to what would happen if Biden were to get elected or Trump were to get elected. And guys, I'm sure there's good things and bad things for both candidates, right? I'm sure Biden's got great policies that's going to help us, the entrepreneurs and the small business owners. And I'm sure Trump's got policies too where it actually may end up hurting us, right? I try to do my best to research and give this information out to you guys, and I'm only one person. So guys, leave your comments down below, right? What do you think is going to happen if Donald Trump were to get reelected? What do you think is going to happen to the housing market? What do you think is going to happen to the real estate market? And of course, guys, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video as well. And also, don't forget to get your free copy of 0 to 75 units in 1 year. Guys, it's absolutely free. All you got to do is just pay for shipping. And in my opinion, I think this is the best book to get right now, especially with the potential opportunities that could come in 2021. All right, guys, I'll see you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.